Hello, and this is chapter 3 of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Dr. Jekyll was quite at ease. A fortnight later, by excellent good fortune, the doctor gave one of his pleasant dinners to some 5 or 6 old cronies, all intelligent, reputable men, all judges of good wine, and Mr. Utterson so contrived that he remained behind after the others had departed. There was no new arrangement, but a thing that had befallen many scores of times. Where Utterson was liked, he was liked well. Hosts loved to detain the dry lawyer, when the light-hearted and loose-tongued had already their foot on the threshold. They liked to sit a while in his obstructive company, praising for solitude, sobering their minds in the man's rich silence after the expense. A strain of gaiety to this rule. Dr. Jekyll was no exception, and as he now sit on the opposite side of the fire, a large, well-made, smooth-faced man of 50 was something of a stylish cast, perhaps every mark of capacity and kindness. You could see by his looks that he cherished for Mr. Utterson a sincere and warm affection. "I've been wanting to speak to you, Jekyll," began the latter. You know that will of yours." A close observer might have gathered that the topic was distasteful, but the doctor carried it off gaily. "My poor Utterson," said he, you are unfortunate in such a client. I saw a man so distressed as you were by the will, unless it were the hide-bound pedant Leighton, at what he called my scientific heresies. Oh, I know that he's a good fellow. You needn't frown, an excellent fellow, and I'm always mean to see more of him. But a hide-bound pedant for all that, an ignorant, blatant pedant. I was never more disappointed in any man than Leighton." "You know I never approved of it," pursued Utterson, ruthlessly disregarding the fresh topic. "Yes, Will. Yes, certainly, I know that," said the doctor, a trifle sharply. "You told me so." "Well, I tell you so again," continued the lawyer. "I have been learning something of young Hyde." The large, handsome face of Dr. Jekyll grew pale to the very lips, and there came a blackness about his eyes. "I do not care to hear more," said he. "This is a matter I thought we had agreed to drop." "What I heard was abominable," said Mr. Utterson. "It can make no change. You do not understand my position," returned the doctor, with a certain incoherency of manner. "I am painfully situated, Utterson. My position is a very strange one. It's one of those affairs that cannot be mentioned by talking." "Jekyll," said Utterson, "you know me. I'm a man to be trusted. Make it a clean breast of this in confidence, and I no doubt I can get you out of it." "My good Utterson," said the doctor, "this is very good of you. This is a downright good of you, and I cannot find words to thank you in. I believe you fully. I will trust you before any man alive. Aye, before myself, if I could make the choice. But indeed it isn't what you fancy. It's not as bad as that. And just as you put your good heart at rest, I will tell you one thing. The moment I chose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. I will give you my hand upon that, and I thank you again and again. I will just add one little word, Utterson, that I'm sure you will take in good part. This is a private matter. I beg of you to let it in sleep." Utterson reflected a little, looking in the fire. "I've no doubt you're perfectly right," he said at last, getting to his feet. "Well, but since we have touched upon this business, and for the last time I hope," continued the doctor, "there is one point I should like you to understand, that I have really a very great interest in poor Hyde. I know you have seen him. He told me so, and I fear he was rude. But I do sincerely take a great and very great interest in the young man. And if I am taken away, Utterson, I wish you to promise me that you will bear with him and get his rights for him. I think you would if you knew all, and it would be a weight off my mind, if you would promise." "I can't pretend that I shall ever like him," said the lawyer. "I don't ask that," pleaded Jekyll, laying his hand upon the other's arm. "I ask you for justice. I only ask that you help him for my sake when I am no longer here." Utterson heaved an irrepressible sigh. "Well," said he, "I promise." The Carew murder case. The Carew murder case. Nearly a year later, in the month of October 18th, London was startled by a crime of singular ferocity, and rendered all the more notable by the high position of the victim. The details were few and startling. A maidservant living alone in the house not far from the river had gone upstairs to bed about 11. Although a fog rolled over the city in the small hours, the early part of that night was cloudless, and the lane which the maid window overlooked was brilliantly lit by the full moon. It seems she was romantically given for It seems she was romantically given, for she sat down upon her box, which stood immediately under the window, and fell into a dream of under the window, and she fell into a dream of musing. Never, she used to say, was streaming tears when she narrated that experience. Never had she felt more at peace with all the men, or thought more kindly of the world. And as she sat, she became aware of an aged, beautiful gentleman with white hair, drawing near along the lane, and advancing to meet him, and a very small gentleman to whom at first she paid less attention when they had come within speech, which was just under the maid's eyes. The old man bowed, accosted the other, and with a very pretty manner of politeness. It did not seem as if the subject of his address was of great importance. Indeed, from his pointing, it sometimes appeared as if he were only inquiring his way. But the moon shone on his face, and as he spoke, the girl was pleased to watch it. Seemed to breathe such an innocent and old worldly kindness of disposition, yet with something high too, as of a well-founded self-content. Presently, her eye wandered to the other, and she was surprised to recognise in him a certain Mr. Hyde, who had once visited her master, for whom she had conceived a dislike. He had in his hand a very heavy cane, which was trifling, but he answered never a word, and seemed to listen with ill-contained impatience. Then all of a sudden he broke out in a great flame of anger, stamping with his foot, brandishing the cane, and carrying on, as the maidservant describes it, like a madman. The old gentleman took a step back, with the air of one of very much surprised and trifle hurt. At that, Mr. Hyde broke out all of his bonds and clubbed him to the earth. The next moment, with ape-like fury, he was trampling his victim underfoot and hailing down a storm of blows, under which the bones was audibly shattered, and the body simply jumped upon the roadway. At the horror of these sights and sounds, the maid fainted. It was 2 o'clock when she came to herself and called for the police. The murderer was gone long ago, but there lay the victim in the middle of the lane, incredibly mangled. The stick with which the deed had been done, although it was of the same rare and very tough and very heavy wood, had broken in the middle under the stress of the insanity, cruelty, and one spirited half, and had rolled in the neighbouring gutter. The other, without doubt, had been carried away by the murderer. A purse and a gold watch were found upon the victim, but no cards or papers, except a sealed, stamped envelope, with which he had probably carrying to the post, which bore the name and address of Mr. Utterson. This was brought to the lawyer the next morning, before he was out of bed, and he had no sooner seen it and had been told of the circumstances Then he shot out a solemn lip. I shall say nothing till I have seen the body, said he. This may be very serious. Have the kindness to wait while I dress. And with the same grave countenance, he hurried through his breakfast and drove to the police station. Whether the body had been carried. As soon as he came into the cell, he nodded. Yes, said he. I recognise him. I'm sorry to say that this is Sir Danvers Carew. Good, sir, exclaimed the officer. Is it possible? Exclaimed the officer. Is it possible? And the next morning his eyes lightened up with professional ambition. This will made a great deal of noise, he said. And perhaps you can help us to the man he briefly narrated, what the maid had seen and showed the broken stick. Mr. Utterson had already quailed at the name of Hyde, but when the stick was laid before him, he could doubt no longer. Broken and battered as it was, he recognised it for one that he had himself presented many years before to Henry Jekyll. Is this Mr. Hyde a person of small stature? He inquired. Particularly small and particularly weird-looking is what the maid calls him, said the officer. Mr. Utterson reflected, and then raising his hand, if you will come with me in the cab, he said, I think I can take you to his house. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. There was part 4 of chapter 3 of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it will continue during next week. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed watching this, and take care and bye-bye for now.